Okay, good morning everybody. My role here is to moderate this panel. We did this last year, it was very successful, a lot of interesting insight. We are going to battle a little bit the noise coming from the other side of the curtain here, so I'd ask all our speakers to make sure they speak into the mic and so everyone can hear. And just to test, way in the back row there, everybody can hear. John, you're good? Okay, so we're going to start by just a quick introduction. Everybody will introduce themselves and just give us a little bit of background. I'm Bruce Thomas, president of Ron Eastern Construction, and also a member of the OCA board. So I'll just pass.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Josh Kardish. I'm the senior vice president of EQ Homes, which is the home building arm of the regional group of companies.
You've got a mic in here.
Oh, there we go. Hello. Hi, my name is Rod Lahey. I'm the past principal of Roderick Lahey Architect. Still am sort of managing partner.
My name is Graziella Girardi. Everybody call me Gigi, so you're welcome to call me that. I'm the vice president for Thomson Infrastructure. It's basically have civil construction. We do bridges, highways. Also have an environmental side, residential. On the basement side, and Thomson also does environmental and aggregates and what else? That's it.
Hi there, my name is Johannes Ziebart, and I'm the president and CEO of Ziebart Electrical Contractors and also TWZ Group. We do large commercial, industrial, electrical contracting, as well as high-rise residential, and we're also, the TWZ Group is a joint venture that we put together, and we're doing center block at Parliament Hill.
Hi, my name is Sylvain Blais. I'm the Director General, so Public Works, PSPC, and responsible mostly for project execution and project delivery, mostly in bridges and dams and other major assets.
Okay. How was that audio? Different levels of voices. John, you're at the back, we're good? Okay, so our agenda this morning, we're a little bit late starting, so we'll be a little bit late finishing, but we'll be done by 11. We'll leave some time at the end for some questions from the group. But we're going to tackle three basic subjects. We had a meeting to organize this, and Johannes insisted on talking about tariffs, but we said no. I told you I'd work it in. No, we're not going to talk about negative things today, okay? We're not talking about the T word. It's off the table. We're going to focus on other things. The intent of today was to be positive about things, and as I said in the presentation we just did in the other room, let's focus on what's going well in this city. We got a great city, we got an amazing industry, we got a lot of wonderful people, and a lot of good things are going on. So what we wanted to talk about was those good things. Now, the three topics we're going to touch on are challenges, successes, and a little bit of a crystal ball into the future. And I realize challenges sounds like a negative word, but the intent is that we're going to focus on some of the challenges each of these individuals is having in their sector of the industry, and you know how that's impacting them with an eye to we always can be a little bit better. So I asked everybody to channel a little bit of inner Ted Lasso today and focus on the positive. So we're going to work that way. We'll go through each will talk about each of these items. And then at the very end of it, we'll take some questions. So we'll start at this end, and we'll let Josh go first on the subject of challenges.
Okay, so on the challenging side for residential new build real estate, has anybody bought a home in the last 5 years? Anybody here bought it? Okay, fantastic. You're my subject matter then. In my 25-year career, this is the first time we've seen prices drop in the city of Ottawa. And we are still living through that challenge. And the way that reflects in the industry is you have to learn to meet the market where it is. The things we've done to address that market is we've changed the specification of our homes. We've found ways to be a little bit more economical in how we've constructed the houses. And for the first time ever, homes that we sell in 2024 and 2025 were lower than the prices they were in 23 and 22. Our costs were reciprocally lower as well. But that's just a reality. It's a reality that makes its way through the industry in different ways. And it's a challenge that we've had to address and continue to address. And I think it was a comment made in your opening session. It's a challenge we will continue to address for many years going forward, because there seems to be a group of buyers out there that either want to get into our market, the low-rise freehold market, or the mid-rise market, and they're sitting by the wayside, holding a pile of money, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce and buy that home. So all of those are challenges that we have navigated and continue to navigate to sort of stay relevant in the marketplace.
Rod, is your mic working now?
Oh, is it working? Yes? I hate mics. I should have mentioned in the introduction, our firm basically is focused on multi-unit residential. We've been at the forefront of a lot of the high-rise and mid-rise construction within the City of Ottawa. So I'm going to speak on one of the challenges, the major challenge we have today. I have two of them I want to speak to. One is the actual time frame it's taking for the approval process within the City of Ottawa. And I'm not speaking to the building permit process. That is actually working very well. Usually if there's a delay in the permit process, it's usually our fault or our consultants. The issue is really with the site plan approval process. When I started, it used to take between 3 to 4 months to have site plan approved. Today, I tell my clients to plan on 12 months, basically. It started through this desire to make things move more efficiently. So every time the city said they're going to make it more an official approval process, or the province steps in, I add 1 or 2 months to the process. So it's very time consuming, and add to that trying to get a legal document once the site plan has been agreed to, getting that out of the city can be another 6 to 12 months. So those are the sort of frustrations that we're dealing with. And the site plans, for example, and new builds are one thing, but if I give you an example, the city is required us to do a full site plan submission for a retrofit of an existing office building, a conversion into a residential building. Now, the footprint doesn't change, none of the metrics change, except it's a change of use within the building. That's taking, I say, upward to 12 months. The City of Calgary has adopted a policy now for these office conversions that are taking no more than 2 months. And it would be great if the city began looking toward improving this process. It has a substantial impact on the cost of a project. A lot of our work deals with rezoning. Rezoning is essentially the implementation of the official plan policies at sort of a neighborhood level. And that process can take years to get approval. Sometimes we are forced to bypass the approval process if we're not getting anywhere, and we're able, luckily in the province of Ontario, to make an appeal to what was once the Ontario Municipal Board, the Ontario Land Tribunal, to seek approval at that level, and we've been very successful at that. So, I think I say that this whole process of delay is huge cost implications to some of these larger projects as land sits vacant waiting for approvals. And it's actually had the effect of having some of the developers actually look for other opportunities. So the city should be mindful of that moving forward. We hope they are. Do we have time to talk about a second challenge? How we do?
I think we'll move on.
Move on?
Yeah, just
Okay.
keep the time.
Too many challenges. So one of the challenges that I've seen, not necessarily in our, for my industry, is that the construction in general is the lack of productivity, right? It's being a declining over the years in the construction, and is that due to regulations, zoning, different specifications, all the red tapes that we're seeing. So this all is a snowball effect. So you slow the process, now you slow the permits, you're slowing the designing, you're slowing putting out in the market. And to add to that, we have now a labor force, that the shortage of labor force that you have to train. So now you're training people, but the process is slower. So we have to rethink how we actually going to get construction being more productive. If you look at it 15, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, things are easier, less paperwork. Now we're all digital, but we have way more paperwork. The specs are bigger. You know, the specifications are so different depending on municipalities or entities you're dealing with. Also, when you look in the construction industry, the lack of adoption of technology or catching up technology, we're the lowest in our sector. So this is contributing to the fact for us to slowing down. You know, everybody's slowing down a little bit. So now we talking to some of the MTO and other municipalities. They say the issue with putting out our jobs is that we don't have the engineers to do the work. We haven't prepared for that. So they have the money, they don't have the project to put it out. So as an industry, I think we have to rethink here what you're doing and how we're going to get back on track and be more efficient and how make sure that the whole industry is moving in a certain pace and it's not being delayed by consultations or rezoning or permits or locates now is a big deal on the job site, right? One day you lose, it's not just that crew, it's the whole company that's losing a day. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have now in the industry.
So after listening to the last two people, I'll sort of talk like a subcontractor, and I'm really glad I don't have to go through all of that municipal rezoning. And by the time it gets to us as electrical contractors or subcontractor, we're pretty much tendering, or we've been part of the design team at times, but we're sort of jumping right into construction. And so for me, the challenges, there's some future challenges, which we're all talking about, manpower training and education that, you know, is in the news all the time, and everybody's been ramping up and trying to figure out how to handle all that. So that's underway, and there's a ton of resources going towards it, and it's still going to be a challenge. But I'm going to talk mostly specifically to the Ottawa market. And being a contractor for the last, the company's been in business for over 45 years, but I've been there for about 35 years, 40 years. And one of the biggest things about Ottawa is that because of the size of the market space that we have here, it's always been a challenge to maintain your consistency of size, I find. You know, we'll get a large project. We did the General Hospital back in like 2003. It was 1 million square feet. And we ramped up to like 220 employees, but there just wasn't another big project after that. And, you know, coming out of the dot-com bubble, we were doing, you know, towers all over Canada, and then it just evaporated, and we always had to pivot and shift. So I think if I was going to sort of give some advice is to really learn how to be resilient across the different market spaces, because we're going to have a period too. We're going to have a lot of big mega projects. You know, we've been on LRT now for 8-9 years, and that's been wonderful, and it provides stability. But at the same time, you know, we've learned how to become, you know, residential high-rise contractors. We've learned how to handle our retail market space and also see those things go through waves and shifts over time. And you have to really become resilient about seeing it coming and getting excited about going through that shift, because if you look at that shift of market space or change in economy in an area, and we're going to go through some of it again, we're all seeing some changes happening in the world, you really have to sort of get excited about handling the changes, otherwise you'll just be at your desk feeling sad, you know? And we went through it with the pandemic, right? The pandemic hit us all really quickly. We all had to pitch and move around and figure out how to deal with all that. But if you really take it as a new learning challenge, your company and your employees will come out the other side stronger and better positioned in the market. So I just really encourage that as everybody's going through these changes, you stay positive and focused on what can you do inside of your own organization and your industry to really, you know, learn how to use technology, you know, work with the city to overcome some of the challenges, work with provincial barriers, federal government, and figure out how to keep these things moving forward so that we do have a robust industry.
Hey, I'm a little bit of the outsider here, so I'm putting a positive spin into that. So, as you know, we're really operating in a prudent fiscal framework, and we need to also align our investment with the government parties. So, on the positive, actually, there's major investment that are still actually needs to be done, and we're really looking into innovation to bring positive outcomes. So our complex projects are really facing costing, and then as we work with the industry, schedule pressure, cost certainty is something that is key for us. So on the positive is all of these projects, and I'll be talking a little bit more in the successes, is bring some of those progressive, innovative procurement measures that are able to, for us to work with industry, bring positive outcome, bring also successful completion of those projects, and then align and continue to work with them. So in a nutshell, that's some of the challenge, and this is how we're facing it into some really niche work that my team is actually delivering.
So I just wrote down a few words that everybody mentioned, and we talked about the cost of things, the process, the productivity side of things, education, investment, all the words that were used up here. The one thing I would throw in from my perspective is we talked in the previous session about mentoring and the value of mentoring and the challenges of getting our older folks, and I'm right up there with the older folks, to understand what mentoring really means to our industry and how we can pass on, as Bill mentioned in the other session, how do we dump all that's in our heads into the young people so that they can benefit from all that experience. And it's not an overnight experience, it's a journey, right? And it's how do we transfer that information effectively? And the sooner we start, which is the day they walk in the door, the sooner they're going to get there, right? So, I think that's a big challenge we have is to, I use the word delegate with my young staff all the time as soon as possible. Everybody needs to learn to delegate and trust, and we've got to develop that. And the sooner we do, the sooner people will develop those skills to be able to take over from the older ones when they move on, right? So, and the other thing is to teach people to spend the right amount of times to do things, the right amount of times to finish drawings, the right amount of times to get processes through the city, the right amount of times to do the work on the job site so we don't have to do it 2 and 3 times. Everyone's in a rush. I spent my teenage years listening to my dad tell me, slow down. It took me a long time to figure that out, but you got to do it right. So I think that's a huge challenge that we have, teaching people the right amount of time to do it right the first time. So anyway, lots of good stuff from the panel. We're going to work from the middle this way and around this time, so we won't start with Josh every time. Okay? Won't put you on the spot. So that was a reasonably positive spin on challenges. They're all good thoughts. We're going to work on, talk about successes, things that in each of these people's worlds have gone well, because I think it's important when you see the successes, some people may, hey, I'm going to do that in my organization, or I didn't realize that, that's something that I could implement. So hopefully we'll all learn something from this discussion about successes. And Graz, I'll put you on the spot, and you can go first.
Okay, what I see in the industry is actually a lot of focus in innovative and sustainability in general, not only in the heavy civil side, but the building side too. So this is these new policies that actually help us push us to be innovative and creative, right? Everybody complains about carbon print, but low carbon, it is something that we have to work on. So when I look at the heavy civil side, the wrap, recycle asphalt for pavement. So you're, taking that and putting back in your mix design and producing asphalt. You're diverting that from landfills, so you're preserving your natural resource. So that is a big win for the industry. And it's nice to see that City of Ottawa still have the wrap in their specs, and we are pushing more for standardized across the province. So it's not only in one location, it's across the industry. Another factor is recycling concrete. We can use as an aggregate. So you demolish a building, so you can reuse that as a granular. And that is, again, you're diverting that from waste and reusing and keeping on the sustainability side. Low carbon concrete, reduce the carbon footprint, use less cement, so it's good for the environment, and pushing the producers to the next level. So in the building side, I see a lot of ICFs, insulated concrete forms, that all not we're saving manpower there in the form work, but also we have the insulation at the same time. So the challenge is some of these innovations, they have a cost, but I've seen more and more use of these technologies. Modular buildings and cross-laminated timbers. So these all new technology that we have, make sure that designers and consultants and developers are looking, and it's not just the initial cost, but the future cost. So there's a lot of innovative, not a big focus on sustainability. How can we actually save energy using what we have and not just spending, doing the old-fashioned way. So there is a forward thinking, I would say, in the construction now.
Johannes?
Thank you. So success, it's such a big, broad subject. I think what I had written down is a little different than what I'm thinking now. So for me, success, we all have different measurements of success. So there's obviously, as a company, we talk about our profitability and so on and so forth. But I think the biggest success I would say to focus on is, I love that we use a lot of technology in our company. We were one of the first people to adopt, sub-trades using CAD and BIM modeling. And now we have drones flying around our site, mapping everything so we can see our progress and all sorts of wonderful things. And that's great. But to me, the biggest success has been our people. So we have a really, really low turnover. I always say that it takes 10 years to make an electrician. It takes 5 years to get them licensed. It takes 10 years to turn them into a good electrician. It takes 15 years to turn them into a great electrician. And it takes them 20 years to become a great supervisor. And so if you understand that, that our manpower and is our main success. And from that, I think the other success that I would really focus on, or that I think we focused on, is that, customer retention. So, I have one customer that, we got this customer, my dad was still working at the firm, so it was in the 90s, and I'll never forget going into their office, and we weren't even the low bidder, but they weren't really confident of the guy who was low, and they gave us the job, even though our number was a little bit higher, and now they've been a client for over 30 years, and every year we have lots of success with them. But the main thing I think about that customer retention is that they can't just count on me, because if they can only count on me to care about their success as my client, then that's great. They know they can call me and I'm going to care, I'm going to help fix the problem. But they can call people in my staff all the way through to journeymen. They know that they can call them and they'll have the same attitude where we actually want our clients to be successful. And to me, that cultural piece that we've cultivated has been our greatest success, is that throughout our company, we have taken the time. Like, we just retired our service manager. He was with the company for longer than I've been there. He was there for 45 years. And we retired him, and we had a succession in place. We had someone to take that over. And so, and that person was an apprentice that started from my dad, right? So we have tremendous retention inside of our company, and I think that retention gives you the space to develop that success. I think if you're not retaining good people, you're just going to have a hard time having longevity and a great success in the market. So.
Okay, so I was talking about some of the pressure from our point of view, actually, in the government with regards to government priorities. So the success actually is really into something that we're pivoting right now on some of our major initiative, is the innovative procurement methods such as progressive design build that are really showing early success and positive feedback from the industry. I think there's a lot of really positive from the people in here. So there's also recent market sounding that indicates that this new method is really preferred by the industry stakeholders for really complex project, because it allows actually early collaboration with designers and builders to promote innovations. So that is something that for us that is really key. How do we are able to work with industry, drive cost certainty, drives schedule certainty also for completing. It allows also really a creative solution from typical traditional methods of delivery. Those projects being long-term, really actually critical for the areas. And the one I'm talking are mostly in some of the bridges, the dams that are actually long-term, in some cases 5, 6, 7, 10 years actually in the making, from design to construction to really the turnover. So those are really where we're seeing actually some of the success. And then the working with the industry actually, and everything that was said is really something that we look forward and will continue to work actually to implement.
Okay, I'm going to go from the macro level down to the micro level. So at the macro level, and I hope this is the first of 2 times I get to say this in the next few weeks, our market is stronger than Toronto's. And we're going to beat Toronto, right? So first of 2 times in 2 weeks. So I have colleagues in Toronto. I volunteer at the Ontario Home Builders Association. The residential new sale market in Toronto is at or near zero. And I think it goes back to the comment I made in my earlier comment about challenges. They haven't hit the bottom yet. And so it's really hard to find stability in that marketplace. And the new home market is challenged to bring new product to the table and have success in that marketplace. In Ottawa, we have found some measure of stability. If you're a production home builder like we are, you're always looking to fill the backlog. The same way some of the people here have spoken about ensuring you have a backlog of stable work to keep your team employed, we need to have a backlog to keep our team going and to ensure we have stability for our workforce and our organization. Our backlog is back up over 100 homes. It's not where we want it to be, but it's certainly better than my colleagues in Toronto. Going down to the micro level, at the organizational level, I think what I'm really proud of and what I think has been a big success, that's a mouthful, for our organization has been being able to adjust our specifications, work with our subtrade partners, use conventional construction methodology, proper estimating, talking to our field partners, simplifying our homes in order to get those houses down to a price point where we can beat the market again. So I go back to the micro level challenges, using our team appropriately and meeting those macro level challenges. And I think to Bruce's point, we should all just be excited to be in a market where there has been some measure of stability through all of this. I think our Southern Ontario partners are more challenged than we are, so I'm happy about that, and I think it is a macro success for the city.
So despite the challenges that I mentioned earlier, my success is actually that we've actually had virtually 100% of our projects approved through this long process. So we're quite pleased, either approved, as I mentioned, through Planning Committee and Council or going through the Ontario Municipal Board. And we have to really thank Council. They've adopted an official plan that allowed us to push the limits of development way beyond which we ever thought was going to be possible. And to give you an example, right now our firm has got 10 high-rise buildings in various stages of either construction or approval just on Montreal Road alone. We're seeing, for example, on Scott Street, the whole world has changed on Scott Street, if you know the Westboro area on Scott Street. When we did our first high-rise, it was the first high-rise building on Scott Street, that it was a traditional Main Street zoning that allowed 4 to 6 stories. I think right now there are 2 30-plus story buildings under construction, and some 6 in the various stages, either full approval or just waiting for construction starts. So these have been great successes in sort of the changing the very sort of nature of some of these communities that we work in. So a major catalyst of this has been actually in the success of our high-rise and mid-rise development is associated development with the LRT. Anyone just has to look at the city and to see wherever a LRT station is, the increased development that's taking place. We now have 3 major projects at various stages, 2 tower schemes of 36 stories, another one with 2 30 stories, all taking advantage of the fact that they're near LRT stations. But the real benefit we're finding is that with these denser developments, we're seeing substantial changes in the local communities, and the impact is far-reaching, I think, in a positive way. I look at years ago, we submitted an application to a 32-story building on Preston Street. It's called Soho Italia. Well, we brought to the city and they said, absolutely no way we're ever going to approve a 30-story building in this location. Well, since our application, of course, Claridge has built the Icon, a 45-story building. Riskcraft has approval for two 65-story buildings. I think Claridge has another approval for a 60-story building in that location. Along with that, we've done, I think, 4 buildings along Champagne Street, just outside of Little Italy, and another building within. So these are great game changers these buildings have on the community. You can see sort of a renewed sort of energy in the areas where they take place with increased, restaurants, commercial spaces are popping up, and potential for just more people living and taking advantage of, as I say, the rail system that's being put in place. This is also beginning to push development and getting the city to move in some of their long-range transit goals. We've just heard talk about finally they're looking to implement the BRT system. That's, it sounds funny, but it's a bus rapid transit system. And that's going to be running down Baseline. And again, there's tremendous potential along Baseline with some of these major sites being converted either from old shopping centers or old office building complexes. So that and along, they're also talking about eventually a streetcar along Carling Avenue, of which that makes total sense. Again, we've got huge projects, Lincoln Fields, Westgate, all the way down Carling Avenue has got fantastic opportunities that only be strengthened with a streetcar system. So, thank you.
So, thank you. Just a lot of the words that we heard: sustainability, technology adoption, people. Another along the mentoring thing about low turnover, customer attention is huge. Innovation, simplifying, making things more streamlined, are all good things. The one thing I would add to it is more of an observation as opposed to maybe a success. But we're very fortunate to live in a city that talks to each other. This is the biggest little city on the planet, and we talk to each other, we share. I know in the general contracting community, we talk to each other, we talk to the developers. You can't get away with anything in this city without everybody knowing about it pretty quickly, and I think that's a good thing. And to knock Toronto, which, being a Canadiens fan, I'm going to knock Toronto on Josh's behalf, that we're way better at it than they are. They don't talk to each other down there, and I think we're really fortunate to live in a city where we share, because that sharing helps us be better. And it's great to hear, in spite of the issues with the city, that we're getting places. And you look at the growth, and we look at the projections that Bill presented in the previous about all the work that's going on and the potential work that's coming. And we've got a great industry that's implementing it. So again, we're putting that spin on, this is a really positive thing, and we have an amazing city. We're going to try the crystal ball thing now, and there'll be no T word in any of this crystal ball, please. But we're going to just talk a little bit about what our group here feels the future, the near-term future looks like. And we'll start with Sylvain at the far end this time.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. So the future, let's actually, narrow that to my own, crystal ball of the projects that we're currently delivering. I don't want to speak too broadly, but anyway, there's some uncertainty. We've talked of challenges. I've talked of successes in terms of how we're seeing and we're able to address it. The future for us and for me actually is to continue to innovate in various ways in terms of how we procure, how we work with the industries actually. That's because I'm the outsider here, not being from the industry, but being the one, mostly giving works away. So in our complex projects, for us, really, the future is how we're able to bring positive outcomes, but in a way, actually, is also positive for the industry because it's a win-win. How can we work with the rest of the industry in the NCA, Ottawa region, which is booming, and then bring some of those projects actually to fruition? That's really something that I see is the future. Continue with that. With that, actually, I'm also seeing to foster the collaboration with the various stakeholders. That's the only way, actually, that we're going to be able to bring success, again, on both sides. And then I would stop. Actually, I'm a little bit quicker in finalizing that. So what are the success that we see for us in delivering those major projects is overlapping some of those elements that we typically go in terms of traditional design, construction, approval, and all of that. And that brings actually some of the reduced costs from us, and also allows to minimize some of the uncertainty and accelerate the delivery from our point of view, actually. So we get in, we get out, the project is delivered, we're able to focus on something else. So those are some of the key elements that I see of the future and the continuing relationship with our partners that are here on this stage. Thank you.
Jumped the queue on me there.
Jumping around. I specialize in making people uncomfortable, so that's what I'm doing here, is just mixing it
I can
up.
attest to that. So Ottawa, as mentioned, Ottawa is a great city. I mean, we're really blessed when you look at the number of, from a construction point, number of major projects going on. It's absolutely amazing. I say my office is down in the Preston Street area, and I'm watching the world's largest parking garage being built for the future hospital. It's quite something to see the mobilization on that site. So, anyways, moving forward, I sort of see two areas that we're focused on in our practice. One of them is the revitalization of the downtown core. And we're seeing that happen bit by bit. There's a lot of new construction moving on. You know, when we saw the change in the offices and people moving away, we began to panic about what's going to happen if we get sort of this empty downtown. And I think what we're seeing is this change where I mentioned we're beginning to look at converting these office buildings. We've had success down on Rideau Street. We did a very large conversion of a old office building, some 300,000 square feet into student housing, and all these things are just really adding to the vitality of the downtown area. In the future, though, what I'm seeing more of, it's happening more and more now, is that we'll call it the urbanization of the suburbs. So the suburbs generally, traditionally, was always single-family, row house type development. Obviously, with the boundaries being held, that just can't continue that way. So we have to find alternate means, and we have to look to higher densities and projects. Well, actually, Bruce and I are working right now on a suburban project. We're just finishing two 20-something story buildings on Centrepoint. That would have been unheard of a few years ago to tackle projects like that. And you're seeing that in Barrhaven. You're seeing that throughout the suburbs right now, this sort of urbanization, and beginning to solve some of the traffic issues by moving some of the businesses downtown where people live, providing more of just the suburban house, having the amenities that go with population. So that's increased commercial spaces. So all these things I think holds really interesting future. So.
Okay, I've got 3 quick points. Anybody here live in Rockland, Embrun, Russell, Almont, Arnprior? Great, sea of hands. So this is a stretch, but bear with me. All of these towns, or almost all of them right now, are going through new development charge background studies, and they're coming up with much larger development charges. On the face of it, you'd think that would be a negative, and it isn't great that houses are going to be more expensive to build in these towns that are growing around Ottawa, but when you look at it from a different lens, what it means is that all those councils are taking growth more seriously, and they're doing that because there's a lot more growth happening. I'm going to piggyback off of Rod's comments. His comments are that our suburbs are getting more mature. I see our towns and what we call our exurban towns around Ottawa getting more sophisticated and mature, and we have to start to think of Ottawa as more than just a city but a region, because there has been and will continue to be increased growth in all of those towns. Our firm has made large and significant investments in these towns. Other firms are doing the same, and we're going to see the next wave of expansion in some of these towns. That is undeniable. At the local level, and piggybacking off of Rod's comments, some of the things that keep me excited, and this is a very simple one, but I was surprised at the response from my colleagues up here on the dais, is the City of Ottawa changed the name of its planning committee. At one point in my career, it was called the Planning and Environment Committee. At one point, the term planning was just out of the name entirely, and it was just entirely focused on environmental preservation. And as of today, it is planning and housing. And I think that's a symbolic of the recognition that we have to get serious about approving housing and dealing with our housing crisis. Sort of tied to that, and it's my third point, is there is a housing Accelerator Committee, I think that's the name of it, that's been formed right now. There are members of industry on there. There are architects on that group. People from the nonprofit housing group, OCH, is prominently positioned on this group. They've had a single meeting with the mayor's office. I think they're scheduled to meet multiple times over the next few months. And from what I understand, there are really, really positive and progressive ideas being shared in this group. So I'm excited about all the stuff that's going to come from that, coupled with the idea that development charges are front and center in a federal election, right? Development charges, local infrastructure costs being a central issue in a federal election means that people are taking the issues of housing, investment, and infrastructure really seriously. And it's the first time in my career I've ever really seen that. So.
Okay, so what I see in the future is adopting more technology and AI to the business. We're seeing equipment now that can detect, differentiate a cone between and a person, so that helps on the health and safety side. Using more technology, ChatGPT, help with even from writing an email or actually finding risks in a tender. Help reading contracts that are, thousands and thousands of pages. So help bring that productivity back. Using AI on the scheduling, having a P6, a complex project. I've seen that before, like a hospital scheduling or LRT schedule that can help you look at the critical path or different ways to do that job or approach the work. So in a preliminary stage where the tender is short period of time, you can use that technology to help you, work on the bid and actually be more efficient and find different ways to do that. We are actually creating right now something we call Fabric. It is laying between, I'm not an IT expert or AI expert, but it's trying to connect our estimation software with scheduling software, our dispatch software. So trying to coordinate that and see how more efficient we can be, close the resource gaps. So I see more on that more companies going that way. Thomson is definitely going that way. Not leaving the side that the future is our people, as you said. We do have to build and develop our own people internal. We shifted our mindset many years ago from being project delivered to people building. We build people, right? Build people, the project is the outcome. But now how can we equip our people with the best tools? So it is introducing technology in the day-to-day and make that easy. I was so happy when I saw superintendents using ChatGPT the other day. How can they install, just testing, how can I install a water main, or install a hydrant? And it was so good, and they say, wow, this is awesome. Yeah, so we want to get answers quicker and faster, and provide that to become like part of day-to-day. It's not rock science. So that's one of the things we see in the industry.
I think I'll go back to what Bruce said. The future, the brightest part of the future is that we're actually in Ottawa, because throughout my life we have the natural stability of the federal government, but at the same time we've developed as a community. So we have more industry, more technology companies. We have a lot of different things going for us now, and the work that the federal government provides has become a smaller percentage until now, because the feds and the province are undertaking some really large projects, right? The Civic Hospital, Center Block, West Memorial's under construction. Sylvain and I were talking before, and then the Supreme Court of Canada is going to go, and there's lots of infrastructure projects that they have to deal with. And then we have the Civic Hospital. Like, just that little cluster of work is probably enough for about 20% of the construction industry to be occupied. And so when you have something like that happening in your city, it allows you to go through periods of turmoil that we're all seeing on the news all the time. And so we're going to have a great amount of stability while we still are able to build out high residential homes, deal with learning technology, becoming more productive. We're just going to have, we're just in a way better city compared to so many others, and we're really, really lucky. We don't go through the big booms like you see in Toronto, where suddenly there's another billionaire or something like that, but we have this great stability to make great companies and build a great industry. So the future, I think, is looking pretty bright for Ottawa, considering the geopolitical things that are going on, and we just have to realize that. But we also really need to take our productivity seriously on all levels, like from the government through to our own staff. We really have to take a look at the productivity issues. Like, they're making the news, we're living them. We really have to get a grip on that and become more productive and smarter. Right? Work smarter, not harder. But this time we need to do both. So
to collect up all those comments again and a lot of the themes we've talked about, to me, the future is all about our greatest resource, which is our young people and developing them. And Ted Lasso loves to talk about be a goldfish. Well, everybody be a mentor. Understand what a mentor is and be a mentor and develop the people. Give them the tools to do it. Share with them what you know and get them into good places. And then you can step back and be very proud of what they're accomplishing. But believe in our young people, because there's lots of great ones out there that we can pass our industry on to them moving forward. We're going to take, working with the timelines, we got about 5-10 minutes maybe max. John's wandering around with a microphone there. So I think we can take a few questions here from the group if they're... Okay. Anybody? Wow. Oh, there's one right here. Just a sec. He'll give you the microphone.
Hello. Would you mind to talk a little bit about modular houses? It seems a very quick fix and doable in terms of pricing.
Want to take a stab, Josh?
So I assume you're talking about full modular, like arriving at the site completely constructed and just assembled, like as both. Okay, so our firm, I can only speak to the experience we've had with panelized construction, which is when you basically pre-design a home and somebody manufactures panels, they're delivered to the site and they're put together in that form. And we have done that form of construction. It has improved our cycle time by about 10%. I think you have to do it repeatedly to see the continued improvement in cycle times. There's a firm here in Ottawa, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but there's a firm here in Ottawa called Kaivan Construction that is doing this now en masse. If you drive down the 416, you'll see their purpose-built facility where they actually manufacture all of the exterior of all of their homes in that facility and ship them to their own production site. And I think they're having tremendous success. They just have to find the market to buy their homes. It's not the panacea people think it's going to be. And the reason for that is because when you buy a new single-family home in any market in Ontario, it has to look a little bit different than your neighbors. And so the only way modular is going to solve our suburban housing crisis, our freehold suburban housing crisis, is if people will accept that all houses look pretty much identical, other than perhaps some architectural ornamentation. But if you're willing to do the same thing over and over again, there are tons of upside on economies of scale and efficiency and reduction of cycle time.
Bruce? I'm just going to ask the board here. The last panel was bold enough to predict when we're going to see the construction boom in the city of Ottawa. Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Define construction boom, Ken. When we're going to see it? Have we not been living it for the last?
I believe the last panel was saying around when we started to see the Ottawa Hospital and maybe a new rink for the Ottawa Senators and the 2 new lab facilities, there's going to be a shortage of manpower.
Well, I'll address it because Bill Farrar put it up in our previous, that I believe Bill 2027, 2028 was where the peak of the curve hit, and then it started on a more flattening from there. So the projection is in a couple of years, at least based on the economic data. Bill's nodding his head, so. Other questions?
I know this will be a touchy subject, so I'll try to keep political opinion out of it, but you guys want to comment on the feasibility of Carney's 500,000 homes a year and taking it off of private developers' hands and micromanaging everything?
Okay, I'll take that one because I just answered it in the previous session. So, and again, I'm quoting my friend Bill down here from one of his previous speaks, but if you go through a 10-year period going back a couple of years, Canada built on average about 225,000 doors. We'll call it doors because that would be high-rise, mid-rise, low-rise, okay? At the peak of that 10-year period, we built 270,000 doors. The government's proclamation, whether it's Carney or the previous Prime Minister, that we're going to build 500,000 doors a year for the next 6 or 7 years to get to north of 3 million homes is not feasible. And whether I get in trouble or not, those are hard statistics. That gets to the point. Other questions? Oh, one at the front here, John. Just took one to ask a question. Thank you, sir, and we got a few more coming.
We heard from Gigi about AI. I'm very curious about others of how they're implementing AI in their business.
The question was how you're implementing AI in your businesses. So, Graz, maybe you grab that.
So it's a little bit tricky. You know, we have meetings and everybody from outside is trying to sell you things. But so we're trying right now is creating our own platform that it can give answers to our employees when they're asking questions that are called HR. You can go and answer your own question for HR question. But also like minutes, like we have, we don't take minutes anymore. Like it's all electronic. You do some cleansing, right? Especially I have an accent, so things come weird sometimes. But it's slowly, and what is going to give you the best return in your business. So if you take an AR department or AP invoices, streamline that. So there is AI can use that to see, this is paid, not paid, double. So slowly we are looking what we can get the most return. The construction one, I'll be going to be able to tell you in a couple of months. When I experience that, how it's going to look like, what's going to look like. But right now is more on the documentation side and streamline contracts and get that data.
Yeah, we're the same in our practice. We're using it mainly for documentation, and it's very helpful. But I can see the writing on the wall, and it's just a matter of time before production will be assisted through AI design. There's already been lots of work out there in the world on AI design and AI production. So I get a little nervous for my staff. But the world is changing quickly. We've gone through this. I mean, when I started, I was drawing pencil on paper. Moved through to ink on Mylar with overlay systems, and I remember when we switched over to AutoCAD, and if I scanned from one part of the drawing to the other, I would get up, make myself a cup of coffee, have a cigarette, come back, and sometimes the cursor would move, otherwise I had to go have another cigarette. So, so the world has changed tremendously in a very short period, and I imagine this next leap is a little scary, but it's coming.
Yeah, so I've seen one of the technologies being used in the trains in Europe. So they put the cameras on the train, so every day is running that back and forth and is mapping every single day, and that's helping with the maintenance. So now it's triggering the information and on the background, and now instead of having someone walking the the tracks and tracking, this vegetation needs to be, or there's some maintenance here on the ditch, they actually are using that, trigger the maintenance crew, and the crew maintenance is being deployed to fix that. So there's efficiency and actually getting people more on the safe side. So.
Okay, I think we could take one more question if there is one. If there isn't. Okay, so you have something to do, Simon? You still have a job to do here? I think so. Okay. I'll defer to you.
Nice guy. No, I do have the easy job. All I have left to do is just to say thank you. So on behalf of the OCA, thank you to all our speakers. You guys did a great job. I have the pleasure of working with most of you guys kind of periphery or day in, day out. And I agree with everything they said. It's very, good content, and we're definitely in some interesting times. So thank you guys. And thank you all. Enjoy your day.